Welcome back to the Kiwi Wedding Podcast. My name is Lydia and I am a wedding photographer at Lydia Rachel Photography and your host. I'm surprised popping into your podcast feeds today to say I hope you had a very Merry Christmas and a lovely time with friends and family. I'm here with a little bonus episode for you on these in-betweeny days between Christmas and New Year's. Maybe you've been spending a lot of time with family and you just need to go for a little walk down the road, down the beach on your own, pop a podcast in. If you just got engaged, congratulations. If you're new here, welcome. We have about 75 other episodes you can listen to, so much good content. And my hope is that you will find inspiration, connect with people and their real stories and community here planning your Kiwi wedding. 2024 was a massive year for the podcast and I'm so grateful for how much it's grown, meeting some of you in person, all the amazing conversations and people that I have met through this podcast. I'm so grateful. I know I said that in the last one, but I just wanted to add that in again. Today I'm bringing you a recording from our very first Kiwi Wedding Podcast live event. So back in November 2024 in Auckland, we held an in-person event for listeners, friends, mostly people that are engaged planning their wedding to come along to get to know each other. Sometimes you might be the first or the only one in your friend group getting married, and it's nice to meet other people that understand what you're going through, have some great chats, some vendors there as well. We held it in a beautiful space and I had so many amazing sponsors and vendors come on board to help me pull this event together. We had very stacked goodie bags. They were so good. And I wanted to say a big thank you to all those sponsors. Again, I will pop them all in the show notes for you to check out. Some more photos from the event on our Instagram so you can see how it all visually came together. So a little bit about the event. We had everyone arrive and mingling. We had a beautiful spread set up with grazing platters and cakes and treats. Big thank you to Lydia, another Lydia, great name, from the Baker Bee, who made amazing cupcakes, cakes, and incredible on-brand cake for me, which was a surprise. So lovely. And yeah, really just put in a lot of effort for the day. There was a photo wall, a chance to look through Fritz and Sarah's wedding dress collection. And so had a bit of mingling time and then everyone came and sat down and I had a few guest speakers, which I had a little chat with each of them, and then I had them all join me on the couch for some Q&A together and answering some questions from our lovely attendees as well. So you are going to hear part of that chat today. I did record it and I must apologize from the get-go that we didn't have individual mics for everyone. It was just recorded on one. So there is a bit of ambient noise in the background. It was a large room and there's kind of a main road down below outside. So you may hear a little bit of traffic noise in the background and yeah, just not my usual sound quality, but it is really listenable. I obviously listened back through the whole thing and yeah, you can definitely hear everybody clearly. So definitely recommend still listening. A little bit about our guests. We had the beautiful Lisa from With Love Weddings and Events. She is a wedding planner and a celebrant, incredibly talented, lovely personality, amazing to work with. I'm going to get her on the podcast for a proper full episode next year when wedding season's not as hectic, but definitely give her a follow and yeah, keep an eye out for more on her. We then had Gabrielle Houghton, incredible makeup artist. She has also had an episode on the podcast which has been really popular, talking about her wedding experience and behind the scenes of being a makeup artist. So I will link that one in the show notes as well. If you haven't listened, go back and listen to that one too. And then we had the amazing duo of Fritz and Sarah. They are wedding dress designers. They do alteration. They create their own custom collections. And yeah, really talented, Auckland based with a shop in Parnell. I have had Sarah on the podcast before as well, which I'll also add in the show notes. Cool to go and listen if you want to hear more from her. So you're going to hear my chat with each of them and then all of them together, a few more extra questions. I didn't include all of the Q&A just for the privacy of our attendees, but there is a big chunk of it. And yeah, we just had so much amazing feedback from this day. So I hope it gives you a little taster of what it's like. Obviously, so much better in person, and yeah, just being able to meet people. And after that whole Q&A, we sort of had I didn't want to make it like an icebreaker, like cringy, turn to your neighbor and tell them 3 fun facts or whatever, but I wanted people to get chatting to each other. I know it can be awkward, or especially if you kind of go along to an event by yourself, it's really like putting yourself out there. But I so believe in just the community, and everyone was just lovely that came along. They all got chatting to each other. Yeah, so much great feedback about just meeting people going through the same season. And yeah, that's what it's all about. I think that is so important. And I would absolutely love to do more events like this in 2025. So let me know what you think. I always love to hear from you. Get in touch on Instagram. I'm thinking about doing a Christchurch one and maybe another Auckland one. Let me know what you think, where we should do it next, and we'll try and make it happen. Again, thank you all so much for listening to the podcast in 2024. I'm so excited for more next year. So excited to see everybody's engagement news and just welcoming more people into this space in their engaged era. So don't forget to send this to a friend if they're newly engaged, and get in touch with me over on Instagram. I will see you there. Enjoy bonus episode of the live event with this amazing bunch. We're going to have a bit of a mini episode chat with each of our guest speakers, and then a bit of a Q&A. So first up, I'd like to introduce Lisa Langsford from With Love Weddings and Events. Yep, Lisa's a wedding planner and celebrant as well. So to start off with, you could tell me a bit about your background, your journey, what's led you to where you are today.
Okay, I'm Lisa. I have had, I think like I've always worked in hospitality, always worked in events. And when I was younger, I decided to do a degree in hospitality and event management. And I was really lucky. I picked up a job at Villa Maria Winery out near the airport when I was a bit younger. And when I was there, I had the opportunity to work very hard and lots of long hours. And we organised Christmas parties and 660 concerts and weddings and corporate events and everything like that. So I guess that's when I truly learned about my passion for weddings. So I worked there for quite a long time, and then I decided to get out of the venue-based environment, and I worked at a catering company for a little while. So I worked at the Great Catering Company, which is also a brilliant spot, a brilliant company to work for. Learned how to navigate lots of curveballs in that environment, because every wedding that you worked on, there was just, the dynamics were completely different. You know, there was never the same power inlet or the same water access or anything like that. So I guess I learned a lot in that environment. And then I worked at a bunch of different venues, and then throughout the COVID kind of lockdown period, I decided to bite the bullet and really build out my own website and just take a bit of a risk and back myself and start my own business. So yeah, it was a little bit scary, but I think it was probably one of the best decisions that I got to make, and I'm really fortunate that I get to work full-time in the wedding environment. Yeah.
So amazing. Love what you do, and you're just like the perfect personality. Thank you. Like helpful and positive. So yeah, highly recommend Lisa. Can you tell us a bit more about your business, the kind of services you offer, and yeah, a bit of the like process of what it's like when people work with you?
Yeah. So I guess first and foremost, I'm a wedding planner and stylist. Sometimes, but I'm sure many of you have experienced, like sometimes planning a wedding can be somewhat challenging. Like you go through a lot of emotions. I see some of you smiling, so maybe you have experienced that. You go through a lot of emotions. It's quite, it's an expensive venture to do. So, and there's a lot of people that you're involved with. Quite often you're overwhelmed with like the sheer volume of photographers and caterers and venues and dress designers and, you know, all that sort of thing. So I guess like wedding planning for me really fills my cup, because I really help people to kind of navigate the journey that you need to go through to kind of get to your dream day without chopping off your arm and selling it to be able to afford it. So I guess like when I work with my clients, I help them up front. One of the most important parts of my job, I think, is to help them at the beginning to create a really clear and cohesive vision. Like, where are you headed? What is your North Star? What's important to you? And then help my clients to understand, like get a really realistic understanding as to how much that vision is going to cost. Because I think I've seen quite a lot in the past, like you can make some like emotional decisions up front and go, oh, this is the venue that I have to have, without truly understanding like what's included as part of that venue hire and what does that mean for everything else in terms of your planning journey. So I help my clients to set that up at the beginning, like do a full detailed breakdown, and from there kind of do all of the research, put my recommendations in front of them, and just really facilitate that process and make sure that all the logistics are sorted, no detail has been forgotten, and hopefully on the wedding day you're able to just sit back, enjoy the moment, and not even think about, God, is that napkin folded how I wanted it folded? Because who the hell cares, you know? Like it's just helping my clients to really remember their why, I guess. So
good.
First and foremost, that's what I do. I'm also a wedding planner, a wedding celebrant as well. So that's something that really fills my cup, in particular because it can be, for some people, quite a terrifying, vulnerable moment, like standing up in front of all of their loved ones. Not everyone loves that. Yeah. So
I think a lot of people assume that having a wedding planner is only for like big bougie weddings with huge guest lists, huge budgets. What would you say to that type of person that thinks that? And yeah, who do you think should hire a wedding planner?
Yeah, good question. I would say that it's less about the size of your wedding and the budget of your wedding, and it's more about the experience that you want as part of your wedding planning process. So working with a wedding planner helps you to really kind of fixate on what is most important for you. It helps to give you time back so that you can focus on the fun stuff, like what dress are you going to wear and what are you going to do with your bridal party in the lead up to that moment, and how can you involve your family to make sure that they feel really special and part of the journey. So I would say it's, if you're wanting a really relaxing experience, if you're wanting somebody who's able to like share their expertise and hopefully save you money by guiding that you're not going to fall into those pitfalls, those common pitfalls, then a wedding planner is going to be for you. So I think like a lot of my clients are young parents who have, like young kids who really don't want to give up their time to their children, or people who work really busy lifestyles and just don't have capacity to put together their dream day without completely pulling their hair out. So that would probably be my response. It's more about like how much you want to enjoy the experience.
Yeah, so good. Planning a wedding can be like another full-time job when you already have one. So yes. Definitely recommend getting a planner or at least coordinator to help you through that process. So helpful. Are there any sort of common mistakes that you see couples making during wedding planning?
Yeah. One major one is sometimes I see people book a venue that doesn't have a good rain backup plan.
Key in New Zealand, any season.
Yeah. I think we learned during that season with the cyclone and just, oh my God. I think like it's always going to be a bit of a 50-50 chance, like in Auckland and New Zealand that it could possibly rain. And so I guess like what I would say to you is like when you're looking at your venue, it's so important to love your plan A, but what you want to make sure is that if it does rain, your wedding's going to be perfect, whether it's plan A or plan B. And so if there is no plan B, it does make it more of an overwhelming emotional experience on the day if your event staff or your day of coordinator or your wedding planner or whatever is calling you, hey, it's pouring with rain. If you had already planned for a good plan B, then it's less overwhelming, I would say.
Yeah, such great advice. Definitely a key one. You kind of mentioned it already, but a lot of couples are quite nervous about the ceremony part of their day. speaking publicly, standing up in front of so many people. Do you have any tips for them on how to stay calm or feel confident on the day?
Yeah. I got married a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I burst into tears about a minute before I walked down the aisle because it was terrifying, in all honesty. And so I'm just being like really authentic about this because I think like I love that I've now stood in the shoes of a bride because I really didn't understand it until I went through it myself. There's like quite a lot of build up to that moment. And even if you are confident, you know, the emotions are running high and it feels a little bit scary. And so what I would say is if you are feeling that way, just know that you're not alone and it's completely normal. Once I got to the front and once I see my couples get to the front and you're with your person up the front there, I see everyone just relaxes. So it's really just walking down that aisle can be terrifying, but once you're up there, honestly, everything else just becomes a whole bunch of a blur and it's just you guys and it just goes so quickly. But what I would say is like probably my top tip for that is just when you're choosing your celebrant, choose somebody that feels like aligns with your vibe. So if you are a relaxed couple, make sure you work with a celebrant who can create a ceremony that feels relaxed for you. Because if it's super formal and rigid and structured and that's just not you, then you actually will feel like you don't belong up there. And so that would probably be my biggest recommendation. So don't book a celebrant until you've met with them and you like them on a personal level.
Such great advice. Yeah, so important to, with a lot of your vendors, I think, just like have a chat to them, suss out the vibes, make sure you get along, especially, for celebrant, that's quite like an intimate part of the day. And then like photographer's going to be with you all day. Yeah, you really want to just work with people you can trust and just, let them do their thing. So good. Do you have any tips for people around planning the timeline of their day and how to make it more enjoyable for them on the day?
Everything takes longer than what you would think. Everyone's having a drink, everyone's taking their time, everyone's trying to like enjoy the moment. So if you can build in a little bit extra time, do it. If you can build in 5 or 10 minutes for you and your partner to sneak off in the middle of your wedding and just go and have 5 minutes to yourself and just reflect on this incredible moment and having a look at all of your plans having come to life and just recognize that you're probably never going to have all your favorite people in one place ever again. I think that's also a cool thing to do. But just on the day, once you're there, once you're at your wedding, your timeline's all done, I think like probably my biggest piece of advice is just like let go. Because if it's not planned then it's not going to happen. So just, as long as you got food, you got drink, you got music, like you're going to be good. But the other thing would be have a really good MC who can kind of lead that process and really take that job seriously, because sometimes winging it isn't cute. But just having like the MC working with either your day of coordinator, your wedding planner, or your event person, and just let them do it, you know, because then you can just be in the moment and spend time with your guests.
Yeah, so good. Such great advice. So important just having that buffer time and then building into your timeline like those moments to stop and take it all in. Love that. Lastly, can you tell us a bit about your own wedding and what you learned from being a bride?
Yeah, I got married during the COVID situation, so real fun. My wedding venue shut down about a month before our wedding, just for a year. And so it was in Cambridge. We were set to get married in Cambridge. And they basically said, look, we're shutting down for a year. You can push your wedding up by a year. But, you know, I'm 4 weeks out and I'm excited. So we're not doing that. So we decided to replan our wedding. But instead of doing it 4 weeks, we gave ourselves 12 weeks. And we ended up doing like a beautiful marquee wedding at home at my husband's place in Karaka. And it actually was perfect. Like, I don't know why we didn't do it there in the first place. So, you know, some just meant to happen that way. But probably honestly, one of the biggest silver linings of that process was because we only had 12 weeks and we were just so focused on like, we just want the people that we love there, because at that time, obviously, it was difficult coming in from Australia and that sort of thing. We were so focused on who was going to be there and what was most important to us that I didn't get caught up in the silly little things. And so it was very much so make quick decisions. If you like it, go with your gut, just say yes. Don't get caught up in necessarily the color of that cutlery, even though like on my inside I love the color of the cutlery. Nobody else cared about the color of my cutlery. So I think it was just like my learning was like it was amazing because we just did what felt right for us. We went with the flow and we got food right, we got the marquee right, we got the entertainment right, and all of our favorite people were there. So that was probably my biggest learning, just like enjoying the process. Also, we got a day of coordinator. Great. I'm a control freak, as a wedding planner would be. So that was like the best thing. I just let go. Yeah.
Oh, so good. Such great advice. Amazing. Thank you so much. Lovely to chat to you. We'll have you back on the couch soon.
Amazing.
Go take a
Thank you for listening.
Next up, we're going to have Gabby. If you can join me on the couch. Gabrielle Houghton, makeup artist, incredible makeup artist. She's also been a guest on the podcast, recently married, and yeah, so cool to chat to you about your own experience and then the makeup artist side of things as well. It's one of our most popular episodes, so definitely have a listen to that if you haven't already. So much great advice. A few of these questions might have been talked about in there, but that is all good. So we're going to start the same. If you could just tell me a bit about you, a bit of your background and the journey that's led you to where you are today.
Yes, I'm a makeup artist. I'm mostly based in Hamilton. I came up with a couple artists today, Hannah and Anna, and we come up to Auckland a little bit as well. I have a team of artists and I train makeup artists now too. It's a very makeup-y world, lots of weddings as well. So I had my own one earlier, it was 8 months ago this year, so I got to kind of experience both sides, which was maybe a little bit different than I thought it would be.
Yeah, so good. Me and Gabby go way back to like school and youth group days. So she did one of my fall makeups back in the day.
It was so much brow bone highlighter.
2009, yeah. So yeah, you're a recent bride yourself, having been on both sides of weddings now. What did you learn through that experience that you might not have already known as a vendor?
Yes, I already knew it was going to be expensive. So that was good to know that in advance. But I thought it maybe would be a little bit easier than it was since I had experience being a vendor. And it still was a little bit hard. So, yeah, just realised that how much work goes into it, I suppose. And I came from a place of so much knowledge about weddings and my feed is like constantly filled with vendors anyway. So I already knew who I wanted to get and just realising that there's so many people who don't maybe have any friends who've been married or that they haven't seen all these designers and blah, blah, blah. In the lead up and that starting from zero would be a lot of work. Yeah, so good. You're a busy business queen, a lot of things on the go in your team and your academy and everything. Do you have any tips about how you look after yourself or make room for self-care? Maybe if you kind of factored that into your wedding planning as well. I just have to do it, like you guys will be the same. I have to do it, otherwise everything else goes and I feel terrible and it all kind of goes downhill. So just really making time for it and the self-care, like during the wedding process as well, it really is about the whole journey. It's not just about the day. So I think being able to enjoy and really prioritizing slotting in like a massage or a facial, it's kind of the only time where you've got, well, I shouldn't say the only time you've got a good excuse, but you've got the best excuse ever. So yeah, try and enjoy like the whole process. Otherwise it can be a bit more just about the day, but I think we need to make it fun the whole way through.
Yeah, so good. I think one of the biggest things people want to know, and you probably get asked all the time, is about skin prep and wanting to look your absolute best on your day. There's so much you can go into with this, but yeah, can you give us a few tips on skin prep and what you recommend leading up to your wedding day?
Yeah, just start as far out as you can and encompassing everything. Like the baseline is a basic skincare routine and sunblock every day. And then if you want your skin to be better than it currently is now, then you need to be doing things on top of that, like treatments, lasers, maybe some things like needling. Needling's really become popular again recently because that's going to stimulate collagen, so help with things like fine lines and whatnot. Get some photos done perhaps before the wedding. I've had some brides who've gotten married and then this is really sad. It's kind of the world we live in, but then they hate all their photos because they've got like smile lines or something. So maybe get some photos, see how that's going to look and think, oh, what can I do beforehand? That sort of thing, just so you have some moments and photos that you love from this day that you put so much money into and time into. And also, I think the internal stuff is really important too. If you're stressed, you're never looking your best. I always break out when I'm stressed. So really self-care coming into it again, and eating things that you know don't break you out. It's a really good motivator too if that's an issue for you. I think the diet and just eating lots of whole foods makes such a difference. And like, there's a few makeup artists here, like we can all tell so much when someone's put in that work for their skin. It just, everything sits so much better. They're happier, we're happier. Not that that's the goal, but you'll be happier as the bride for sure. Lots of hydration, all of that.
Yeah, so important. Some great tips in there. Are you seeing a certain style of makeup this season, or is there any kind of thing that's trending, or what do you think sort of looks best with most brides?
Definitely seeing a slight change slightly at the end of last year and definitely coming into this year where it's a lot more pulled back. I think we did get pretty glamorous and pretty heavy for a while, but it's sort of that expensive look, old money look, which I've been reading some conversations about. Apparently that tends to peak during a recession because everyone wants to look like really classic. And we're all like dressing very beige now.
Yes.
So it's kind of true. But pulled back a lot. It's definitely not as much about the eye. There's still a little bit of depth around the eye, but very little. Very bright and open, which is great. Having a classic simple eye is going to look good in your photos from afar because it's not so much about the photo from right here. It's all your photos have your whole body and your dress in them, and there's going to be really blazing hot sunlight, so a dark eye could look quite shadowy far away, just to get really detailed. Lips, it's way more about lips, seeing a lot more kind of a lip moment, definitely like a lip combo liner, lots more of the pinky, cool tone lips, like the Pillow Talk Fair. That's a really popular one. Thanks, it's MAC. And then the skin has a simpleness to it, but I believe that it's a little bit more coverage. I think the skin's where the time's being spent, really perfected. There's a good blush, it's a blush moment as well, a good bronze, and that simple kind of eye, and perhaps the hair's reflecting that too. Like you can kind of imagine it with that kind of sleek, tidy bun, very elevated, rich. We're all obsessed with Europe weddings too, so it's kind of that kind of look.
Yeah, everyone wants an Italian vibe at the moment, but love it. So good. Some amazing tips in there. Definitely recommend following Gabby on Instagram and TikTok as well. So good with like all the product recommendations, skincare, all the things. So definitely check her out. Can you tell us what is like the most important advice you would give to a friend that's planning their wedding at the moment?
I had some advice. It was either given to me or that I read when I was planning my wedding. For context, I'm definitely a little bit more type A, maybe like Lisa was saying she was before.
A lot of vendors.
And I think it's really easy to stress about a lot of things. Or the bride, on the other hand, stresses about nothing, which has its own problems too. You need just a little bit of organisation in there. But I was told to just focus on a few really important things like values, which kind of ties back into Petra's episode, which has anyone listened to that? So special,
Sweet,
so emotional.
And
hers is all like a very values-driven wedding, but choosing a few things that are important to you. And I chose my photographer because I had to have good photos. If my makeup looked bad in photos, I would be like gone for. Had to have all my people there, so that kind of dictated things because we had 150. And then I think my other one was food or something like that. And I was allowed to sort of stress about those things, and I was allowed to maybe spend a bit more money on those things. They were my splurges. And then anything outside of that, I just told myself I'm not allowed to stress about it. It's a small detail. Like the napkins kept getting brought up. I wasn't allowed to stress about napkins, which really helped me. I could kind of focus on these three elements, and I was allowed to kind of overthink them a little bit, but because it was only three things, it wasn't too stressful in the overall, and that really helped me not letting myself run free, stressing about everything. Yeah,
such good advice. It's come up a few times on the podcast, but just really starting with that, like sitting down as a couple, picking like 3 to 4 things maybe that, you're going to invest a bit more on, or that's your like priorities, values that you always come back to. Yeah, such good advice. Amazing. Thank you so much, Gabby.
Thank you.
Next on the couch, we've got Fritz and Sarah. They are incredible dress designers. You might have seen the rail of their dresses over there, so definitely go and check them out after if you haven't already. But super talented duo, these two. Starting off, same question, and maybe we'll go with each of you. If you could tell us a bit of the journey that led you to where you are today, a bit of your background. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Why not? So I started really young. I think I've been, instead of homework, been drawing dresses all my life. I can't imagine anything else. Self-taught. I had my own business in South Africa for about 7 years. Moved here hoping that I'll never sew again. Stumbled into the industry by accident and I met her. And that's how I got into bridal here. But back in South Africa, I guess that was where the love of it all started. I did a lot of pageants. Miss South Africa was quite a big one there. Proms is a big one there, and which is balls here, right? Yeah. And we did a lot of album covers and worked with a lot of singers, and so it was more red carpet kind of stuff. But bridal is more in my heart. It's more real. It's more, you're dealing with a person's feelings here. It's not editorial. It's not. It's all real. So I prefer bridal. That's kind of why I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, like, I guess when it comes to sewing and things, everyone always has that like childhood story of like both my grandmother sewed, and so I grew up sewing and did it in school. And then I'm originally from Christchurch, so I did the 3-year degree down at CPIT, and then I moved up to Auckland, and I had no intention of going into bridal, and everyone was like, oh, what are you going to do? And I was always like, not bridal, because that feels like a lot of work. And I tried to go through a recruitment agency, and I was like, I really want a job. And they were like, well, all you're going to get is a 3-month unpaid internship in bridal. And I was like, okay. And they're like, yeah, and it's in Auckland. And I was like, oh, okay, so I need to move to Auckland to not get paid to do a job I don't want to do. Great, sign me up. So I did it, and then I never looked back, because I was like, it just feels so much more special and so much more important. And like the look on a bride's face when they put on their dress, and it's like, it's the best that they've ever felt. It's just, it makes it all so worth it.
So cool. We've also had Sarah on the podcast as well, so go and listen to that one.
Yes.
Bit about your own wedding
Yes.
and vendor side of things. Yeah, can you tell us a bit more about your business, what kind of services you offer, a bit about that process, what that looks like working with you?
So we have like 3 aspects to our business. Basically, if it involves a sewing machine and a wedding dress, we're your gals. So a big part of our business is we do alterations. So we work with a lot of bridal stores, and you buy your dress there, and then they refer you to us. And we basically do all your alterations. We fit it, we pin the hem, sizing, all that kind of stuff. So that is kind of how we started in the business, was alterations, because we took our first alteration and then bought a sewing machine with that money. So we were working out of Fritz's house, and so it was really great. And we partnered with Rue de Seine. They were the first company we partnered with, and so they would send their brides to us. And it was like the biggest leap of faith ever. So it was just really amazing, and it meant that we didn't have to invest any of our own money because we didn't have any. So yeah, alterations was a really great place for us to start, because it costed us nothing to do, and it's still a part of the business we love so much. Like, we just had someone on Saturday pick up her dress, and she came in to her first fitting like a month ago in tears, because she's like, I've bought this dress, I've spent so much money on it, but I've lost weight, I don't feel supported. Like, she was just so devastated, and to be able to solve that problem when she came to pick up her dress, and it just fitted her so well, and she was like, I can dance all night in this. It's just like, it's just amazing. Yeah. And so we do alterations. We have our own range, which we launched about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. You can see some of it over there. Mm-hmm. So we've got our new, we've moved into a new showroom in Parnell, and so you can come try on the dresses, you can customise them, we make it fully custom for you, we do all the sewing in-house, and we also do full bespoke. So if you can't find what you're looking for anywhere, and you have your own design, or you want to be part of your own design, you can come in, and Fritz does amazing sketches for you, and yeah. That's us.
Kind of it.
So good. It's incredible. You guys are so talented. I'm in awe of, definitely do not have any of those sewing skills. Are there any sort of trends that you're seeing for this upcoming season, wedding dress styles that you're seeing a lot or you're loving?
Yeah, so our collection is the trend. I'm just kidding. I've been doing this for about 18 years, so it's quite scary to see the 90s and the 80s coming back, but it's really coming back in a big way. But it's good to have the knowledge of that, and it's done in a modern way now, and it's been reinvented. So we see a lot of, I think, big skirts, solid fabric, gathers, pleats, dropped waists, poofy sleeves, poofy skirts, which we love. Corsets, really fitted corsets. Doesn't have to be lace up, but just fitted. Good bust support. Yeah,
I would say corsets are huge. We went through a phase of like 5 years where they're like Meghan Markle, like that kind of crepe, silky dresses were
structure.
in, and now it's going the other end. Now it's full structure.
And always add a bow, just a bow or a flower.
Yeah.
Or something extra.
So loving the bows.
Yeah. She always wants to take it off, and I always want to add it. But yeah, so that's kind of, I think, where it's going. Plain dresses, but there's always an interesting, like either the style line or just fabric manipulation. There's a draping or something interesting happening to it.
Yeah, so cool, so interesting. Do you have any advice for people on how to approach wedding dress shopping? It can be quite an overwhelming process. I've heard a few horror stories from chatting to people on the podcast and my own clients. And yeah, it can be a bit overwhelming. So what can they do to make sure it is an enjoyable process?
You take this one.
So for context, I got married 7 years ago. So I was a little child when I got married. But it was when I was still very fresh in the industry. So I think I'd only been working for like 6 months. So I was still very green. So I went into it with like bride eyes, not industry eyes. And my biggest advice is to don't buy a dress on the first day. Pick like 3 stores, take your people that you trust, that aren't too opinionated, that are supportive as well. And just be like, we're just going to go have a day of it, have a glass of champagne, go out for brunch, and just have no expectations. Because I think the second you put expectations of like, I have to find my absolute dream dress, it can get really daunting. And then you can also feel real crap at the end of it because you're like, oh, what's wrong with me? I didn't find my dream dress. I didn't have that moment that everybody talks about. And it's like sometimes you won't have that moment because sometimes you look great in 10 dresses and you're like, how do I pick between them? So I think it's just removing that pressure from yourself to begin with is really important.
Yeah, such good advice. Same kind of vein, but I hear a lot of people who have anxiety around finding the dress. They're struggling with like self-confidence. I think there's so much pressure to look your absolute best you've ever looked on your wedding day. You see a lot of the behind the scenes of that, those kind of vulnerable moments that probably every bride goes through. Do you have any advice on that and how, anything they can do to just like feel their best through it?
It's easy to say, but just don't put pressure on yourself. Don't have an unrealistic approach to, I want to lose 10 Ks. Or if you want to live a little bit of a healthier lifestyle a little bit before the wedding, go for it. I think we all do it before a big event. But be yourself, because if the dress is good, you're going to look good in that dress. Add the makeup and hair, there's no way you're going to look bad. Just don't put the unrealistic approach of, I need to lose this much weight, all of that. That's unnecessary. I think that's the best thing you can do. Yeah. He's marrying you. So it's happening. You're not going to look amazing. It's just remove some of the pressure. Yeah, I think that is important.
Yeah, so good. That's great advice. I know you guys have so many of these, but can you give us a few tips and tricks around little details with wedding dresses, things people forget, in the prep, just any little tips
so
that you know over the day?
I'll just like pull out my list. So the first one, steaming your dress, don't do it the day of because of She's not
makeup
in.
artist degree.
Yes, with hair and makeup so badly, and it also takes so much longer than expected. Another one, the best way to clean a dress is with micellar water, the makeup remover. That on like a little Q-tip, it's the best thing to get out any kind of oil or fingerprints or makeup or whatever. Always test it on like the inside of the hem or the inside of a seam so you can see if it's going to leave a mark. Never go out with water. That's like the biggest mistake you can make. Always do a test run with your dress. Don't leave it till the morning of. I know you've probably put it on in store for your fittings, but chances are you have a stylist helping you. It's very different when it's in your own home. You don't have a big mirror. Might not have a lot of space. Your mum or your sister or bridesmaid may not have done up the bustle yet. Do like a full trial run beforehand, like a minimum of a week beforehand, because then if there are any problems, there's still time to do something about it. There's nothing worse than us getting an email like the day before a wedding being like, I've just tried my dress on and I can't do it up. Yeah, and honestly, just start early. Like the earlier the better. Even if you don't plan on buying your dress a year out, start the process, start shopping, because you can decide on a dress, but you don't have to put down a deposit or pay for it that day. You can wait a month. Then it gives you extra time to simmer on it and know that it's the right choice, rather than like, I just feel so horrible when people feel rushed into a decision, and we hear it all the time in the alteration side as they come through and they're like, oh, I just felt really rushed and really pressured and I bought it and I don't actually love my dress, so I want to change all these things about it. So just honestly allow yourself as much time as possible to make any decision.
Yeah, so much good advice in there. Amazing. Oh, so great to chat to you guys. I'll get you to stay there and have the other two join me on the couch. Anyone, feel free to jump in on these. It's been a tough year for many. Recession, post-COVID, all the things. Do you have any advice for people how they can still have their dream wedding on a bit of a budget? Maybe Lisa, you go.
I think I'll give a bit of a realistic answer. So I think that it's really important to first of all look at your guest list. So I think if you're still wanting a certain look and everything that you'd ever dreamt of, if there's any way of reining in your guest list a little bit, it's always going to be helpful. Because at the end of the day, that one extra person or those two extra people that you randomly handed a save the date to when you'd had a couple wines, adds $500 to your bill. So I think it's just really considering that. And then I think it's also another good way of really kind of still getting that dream look is thinking about how you can put all your money into the one thing that's really important for you, but then repurpose it. So for example, if you have for your ceremony, you want some beautiful focal florals that just look amazing, do it. Just make sure that you can pick them up and then put them on your bridal table or, somewhere within the reception space so that you've done less, but what you have done is really impactful. Yeah, so good.
And I would jump on that and say, if you're wanting to save money when it comes to a dress, buy secondhand, not a sample. Samples have been tried on by hundreds of people that don't fit them. There's so much makeup, tan. A secondhand dress has been worn by one person and been dry cleaned. Then they're generally the same price.
Yeah. I would just say too, when you're looking at how you can save money, there's going to be your really big bills and then there's lots of little bills. And sometimes if you try and save money on 20 little bills, it would be just making a dent in what you would save if you saved on one of the bigger ones. So I guess maybe if there's something you are happy with a casual food option, then maybe you could save a lot of money there. I'm not telling everyone to get casual food. And then you could still get the really nice signage, stationery, hair and makeup.
So good. Yeah, some great advice there. Anyone can jump in on this too. Do you have any advice on how to choose vendors when there's so many possibilities and it can be quite overwhelming?
I think you just need to see it almost as an interview for a job. Have a coffee with them and see if you gel. I mean, if you don't get along or if there's red flags, don't sign up, because you're going to be holding that person's hand and it's a little bit of, you're going to be our best friend for the next year. So you need to really get along. Otherwise, it's just not worth it. It's just going to cause stress. That's my advice.
Yeah.
And I think also, like, if you've booked one really quality vendor, actually asking them, because our industry is reasonably small in the fact, like, most of us would have worked with most vendors in certain cities. And so, they get that first-hand experience. So sort of asking for recommendations for your vendors.
It's a good one.
Yeah, so good. A lot of people get engaged and then everyone sort of comes out of the woodwork with their unsolicited opinions and helpful, not so helpful advice. There can be a lot of drama sometimes with family and friends, or just like a lot of people coming at you with their opinions and ideas. Do you have any tips on how to navigate that?
I think not everyone needs to know everything. Like your aunt might just not know until the day of that you've decided on a dress or something. You don't need to tell everyone every little detail. And then if you kind of can't get away without telling them, just go into those conversations knowing I'm not going to listen to this person's opinion. And then you can walk away from it and like fully leave that there. And then if you need to appease that person, then they'll still feel seen and heard. But it's kind of like deciding, like, you're a couple of people, my mum, my sister, I'll listen to their opinion, and maybe these people like deliver it really well, kind of what you're saying about the dress too. They're going to really nicely spoken about it, and that's whose opinion you take on board. But not everyone. Not everyone needs to know.
So and it's really important to remember a wedding 10 years ago is very different to what they are today. A wedding 20 years ago, 30 years ago is so different to what a wedding is now. And so it can be really hard, especially when it comes to mums, grandmas, aunts. They're like, oh, well, my wedding was like this. Well, I'm sure you've all been told that at some point. So I think it's also just important to like remember the context of like weddings have changed and it is really different, and the people giving you advice may be giving the advice they wanted in their wedding 20 years ago. And so it's just sometimes knowing that context.
Just because someone sewed 20 years ago doesn't mean they understand the proportions of what needs to happen on your dress. So their input might be valuable in terms of fabric and stuff like that, but they might not really understand what you look good in, or so be careful whose advice you listen to. You can listen, but don't take it too hard.
I feel like there's also, on the flip side of all of that as well, it's also recognizing that quite often your wedding means a lot to more people than just yourself. I think that was probably something that was a bit of an eye-opener for me. I was like, wow, this day is really important for my parents, and it's really important for my husband's parents.
I know, my mum kept on saying to me, like, oh, it's not just your wedding, Sarah. I was like, excuse me.
That's your mom.
Yeah, totally. And so I think that was like a bit of an eye-opener, and it's sort of remembering that and trying to, whilst not giving your soul, also finding ways to include them and make them feel really special, and sometimes meet them halfway, because like Sarah says, like, weddings are very different now to what they might have been when our parents got married. And so it's also like going on that journey together to find somewhere in the middle so that they feel really special and that the day feels amazing for them as well.
And they might have opinions because they want the best for you too.
Exactly.
So include them.
So good. It's such a fine balance of meeting in the middle, respecting your parents or whoever, especially if they're contributing financially. It can be a big thing, and they have ideas, but you want to do your thing.
Often with the dress, we'll get people come in and they try on all the dresses, and they'll have their entourage of 3, 4, however many guests, and then come back alone the second time, because then they are alone, or maybe just one very important person. So they can just have that clarity in the space without the 10 opinions, just to be like, okay, this is really my dress.
Or not.
Or not.
Such great advice. One of the hardest things that often comes up is narrowing down the guest list. Really tricky process, and we've mentioned it a little bit today, but do any of you have advice on how to navigate that?
I have none. We just had everyone.
I know.
Tough one.
You're asking the wrong people.
It's easier. I moved here, so the family is on the other side of the world. But I think if they haven't been a part of your partner's life, or if they don't really spend time with you, then why do you want them there? But it's hard with families, I know.
This is from my own wedding. I come from a family. I've got 3 cousins. My husband has 97 cousins. I know, guys. Try making that guest list. They're all married with kids. Like, it's nuts. So we had a really big falling out because they were like, you have to invite all the aunts and uncles and these are the cousins you have to invite. And I was like, no, I don't know these people. But what I can tell you is that now 7 years into marriage, I wish I just agreed to it and spent the extra little bit of money because it was so important to them. And I didn't understand that because I was still new in that family and I don't come from that kind of family. So I do regret that I kicked up such a fuss about it 7 years down the track. So I think it's also just important to try and see it from both sides of the coin because you can't, I especially got very tunnel vision of just like, I need to save money. The guest list needs to be under 80, like, when actually I should have just compromised.
Yeah, I met quite a few people for the first time at my wedding, and my husband met even more. But we were just like, yeah, that was one of our things for guest list. So we saved on other ways. Just not the usual.
Yeah, it's such a hard process. Some people kind of set rules or they have these questions they ask like, would we take them out for dinner and pay for their meal, because that's basically what we're going to shout them a $100-$200 dinner sometimes, or having sort of like boundaries to help you choose, but it can be really difficult. There's so much incredible wedding content online these days, but it can be really overwhelming and tricky navigating social media. Your algorithm just knows the minute you get engaged and it's hard not to get caught in that whole comparison trap and just being overwhelmed with that content overload. Do you have any advice on how to navigate that?
I would say that like social media is our biggest tool. Like it's amazing. I don't know how they did it like years ago without social media, like you can draw so much inspiration. You can actually visualize maybe some of the different elements that you were thinking of put together. And so I think it's amazing to a certain point. So I think it's just remembering that everything that you see on social media is probably like the most expensive, the the celebrities who did it, And so it's about finding the things that you're drawn into and then picking that up and working with your vendors to say, hey, look, this is kind of the vibe, this is the general aesthetic that we're going for, this is my budget, create my own version of it, and just remaining true to like, this is our general vision, and not sort of like, when you see that picture go there and that picture go there. So I think if you sort of, you're clear on your vision at the beginning, you're also realistic in terms of your budget, you work with trusted vendors, then you should be able to navigate that a bit more.
Yeah, I guess it's okay if you've fallen in love with an idea or a dress. Don't then go and look at someone else that had the same dress and start picking at it, because it's going to give you insecurities. So once you've got the dress, work with that, because, or whatever idea or flowers, don't go and look at other ideas. Maybe limit the content.
I always suggest after you've purchased your dress, generally you're buying it 8, 9, 10 months in advance. So many new dresses are going to come out in that time. You're going to discover some new dresses in that time. My advice is to unfollow, even the brand or the shop you buy it from, just to unfollow, because there's always going to be that little voice in the back of your head that's like, oh, maybe that one would look better on me. So I just trust your gut, trust the dress that you love, and then just try and block out all the other information coming at you through the phone.
And I think just on that, like there's probably multiple dresses that would be the one for you if you viewed it like that. So you're going to see other dresses which are going to be amazing and would look so good on you, but you just have to sit with your decision. And I took the question a little bit of a different way, but I was thinking like maybe what people on social media think about your wedding, which kind of relates to that other opinion, but because I guess most of us put our wedding photos on social media, but whatever people think, you're the one who has to live with the wedding and the decision, even if so-and-so might like it on the day. And since I took it that way, I thought, well, if someone didn't like my wedding or didn't like my dress because I chose like a bit of a not super out there dress, but a little bit, they probably won't let me know, which is nice. And if they do, then it's honestly, it's the person who wants to be engaged.
I love that. Probably.
So good. Yeah, that's such a real thing as well. Or just like planning your wedding, thinking, oh, will this look good on Instagram? Like, just try and think what represents us as a couple, what are our values, and sticking to that, not been influenced by all these outside voices, which is easier said than done.